Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's program. I'm your host, Kelly Wright. And of course, we're hosting this show from my home in Maryland. And this is due, of course, to the COVID-19 global pandemic. Many of us throughout the country are being told to stay home because it's safer inside than to be outdoors where we might encounter the coronavirus, which leads me to my opening observations. On this program, we've been telling you repeatedly that the African American community would likely be adversely impacted by coronavirus. It turns out we unfortunately have been right. The African American community leads the way now, the number of deaths. They are disproportionately impacted because of the health disparities that exist within our community. So we must continue to sound the alarm. This is a wake-up call to each and every one of us that we have to safeguard our lives by following the guidelines, but we also have to talk about the disparities that do exist. Dr. Anthony Fauci and the President of the United States pointed out those disparities during a coronavirus task force on Tuesday. And Dr. Anthony Fauci drilled down a little bit more. He said, this is with us now. This health disparity should not be. And after this coronavirus is over, the problem will continue. We will have to deal with the health disparities that exist within the Black community. And so, we're rolling up our sleeves here on the Kelly Wright Show, and we're trying to engage everybody, Black, white, yellow, brown, whatever, to get engaged in this fight. This is a war, not just against the coronavirus, but against the kind of underlying factors that leads to the health disparities that exist within the African American community. We must end it. And that's a look at my opening observations. Joining me now is my first guest, Dr. Benjamin Chavis, who is the president and CEO of the NNPA, Black Press USA, and he joins me now. Doc, you and I talked about this last week, and the NNPA Black Press on this show announced that there was a state of emergency for Black America because of COVID-19.
Yes.
And indeed, we've seen that, and the President of the United States and Dr. Anthony Fauci also talking about it during yesterday's coronavirus task force. Tell me what else is happening in the Black community. How do we arm ourselves against this dreaded disease?
Well, thank you. And I'm so pleased that we broke that important story on the Kelly Wright Show a week before the mainstream media. And that's the role of the Black press. We have to pay attention to what's going on with the quality of life, with the threats to our quality of life, every moment, every day of every year. The coronavirus pandemic has been devastating to Black communities across the country, on the East Coast, the West Coast, the North to South. Wherever you find African Americans concentrated by population, we are 3 to 4 times the fatality rate. And this is because of the pre-existing conditions. It doesn't mean, Kelly, that Black people are taking more risks than white people. No, that's not it. It means that we were more vulnerable to this pandemic before it started because of the disparities in healthcare system, the disparities in economic condition, the disparities. I mean, there's a long litany of reasons why this happened. And it's going to be, so now that this spotlight is on it again, what are we going to do? We certainly have to wear our mask, wear our gloves, do the social distancing. But I'm also giving some thought now, Kelly, what's going to happen to Black America after this passes through? After we have all of the funerals, after we have all of the memorial service, after we mourn, after we pay our respects to our loved ones who have been lost as a result of this pandemic, we have to shore up our healthcare. We have to shore up our defensive medicine. It's one thing to, react to a crisis, but I think we should be a little bit more proactive. And I think that's the message. Right now, we have to get through it. And more African Americans are going to die if we don't social distance. More African Americans are going to die if we don't wear those masks. More African Americans are going to die if we don't look after one another. Then this is intergenerational. There were so many myths. When it first started, some Black people say, oh, we can't get it. No, we're getting it more than anybody else. And it's intergenerational. It's just not for people over 50. We've had people in their 20s and their 30s, even under 20, to die from the corona pandemic. So let's please keep the information out. It's interesting, the issue now, will the government collect the data? Some states are not even collecting the racial data. And so that's a part of another problem, getting the statistics. You remember when we had all the increases in police brutality, no state was collecting racial data on police brutality. Now we're finding some states, they're collecting the racial data, but they're not releasing it. So we have a full-scale approach. We have to continue to demand the data, continue to try to protect ourselves, but also I think this is a clarion call out of this emergency, out of this state of emergency, for us to put as a priority restoring proper health, restoring proper nutrition, restoring proper conditions in our community that will render us not as susceptible to viruses like the coronavirus.
I'm talking to Dr. Benjamin Chavis, who is the president and CEO of the NNPA Black Press USA. We'll be back with more after this break. Welcome back. So I'm talking to Dr. Benjamin Chavis, and obviously we're talking about the elephant in the room, and that's COVID-19, the global pandemic, and its impact disproportionately on African Americans. We've seen, Dr. Chavis, that this has been something that has hit us very hard in the Black community, Chicago, yes, Milwaukee, New Orleans, and we've yet to see what the numbers really are in New York City. But we do know that a lot of this is due to the fact that even though we're in social distancing, a lot of Black Americans are part of the essential working force. And because of that, they have traveled on public transportation together in close proximity to each other. That's just one of the factors that could be weighing in on this and showing evidence.
We're part of the essential workforce.
Exactly.
We're the police officers, we're the firemen, we're the healthcare workers. And in all the hospitals, who cleans the hospitals? Who cleans those rooms? Who looks after the healthcare workers? And those jobs are primarily held by persons of color in the major urban areas, African Americans. So it's, you saw the clip of the bus driver from Detroit who was complaining that people were coming on his bus coughing without covering their mouths. And of course, he died 5 days later. So I think that we have a lot of work to do. This state of emergency, Kelly, is not over. It is still on. I don't want us to relax. And people say, well, why do you sound the alarm? We need to sound the alarm.
We have to.
Look, if I know there's a lynching getting ready to happen, I'm going to sound the alarm to try to stop that lynching.
And we appreciate you doing that. And of course, the NNPA Black Press USA weeks ago started the Coronavirus Task Force for Black America. I want to read something that the president said yesterday during the Coronavirus Task Force press conference, news conference. He wanted to say, quote, "We want to find the reasons on this. Why is it 3 or 4 times more as for the Black community as opposed to the other people?" Does that indicate that the president and his team will be looking at how they can remedy and right some of the wrongs that have taken place within the Black community beyond COVID-19?
I think it's an indication that the federal government has to change its posture, that the federal government has to be a little bit more proactive rather than reactive. We can't have the federal government from the White House to the Department of Health and Human Services to all of the other agencies say, oh, I'm surprised that this is happening. We don't know. Oh, we're shocked. In the Black community, we knew this was happening before this virus. We know about the disparities. We can be complaining about disparities, the lack of access to healthcare. Most, too fortunately, Kelly, African Americans still go to get their primary healthcare at the emergency room. And this makes us vulnerable. So we got work to do, but I'm glad the president at least is now saying, oh, it's just not Black America's got a problem. America's got a problem. No constituency of this democracy ought to be disproportionately exposed to vulnerabilities when it comes to healthcare.
Dr. Benjamin Chavis, thank you for weighing in on this issue. It's so important. Continue to do the good work that you're doing with
Thank you. We're going to stay on the case, and thank you for your work.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you so much. I know you got to go. I've got to go too. We got a lot more people to talk to about this COVID-19 pandemic. And whatever you do, Doc, stay safe.
Yes, you too.
All right.
Okay, God bless. Thank you.
Thank you. God bless. Welcome back to the program. Joining me now is Jack Brewer, and if you see all of the NFL pictures behind him, it's because, well, let Jack tell you what he did in the NFL. Jack, just explain for us real quickly your storied career in the NFL.
Well, like so many boys around America, I got a chance to live my dream by the grace of God. And, I came out of college from the University of Minnesota, was undrafted, and ended up being able to play in the NFL, made the team after being a free agent, and went on to be a captain on 3 teams. I excelled on special teams, and really for me, it was about the teammates and those guys that I got a chance to spend time in the locker room with. But it truly changed my life because it opened up so many doors. And it's probably the reason I'm sitting here on your show now.
Well, I appreciate that. And it also indicates a legacy of faith and good intestinal fortitude to be able to stand the pressures of the NFL and working together with teammates. As you know, there's a saying in team, together everyone achieves more. And certainly our country needs to be on the same team because together everyone needs and must achieve more against this COVID global pandemic that we're dealing with. What's your involvement with the Trump administration and also just in helping America get on a firm footing to get a handle on this COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, for the Trump campaign, I serve as the co-chair for the Black Voices fundraising committee, and alongside Herman Cain. But more broadly, I've been running my foundation and been doing urgent relief work for almost 2 decades. I've been in Haiti and in Malawi, Africa, and all other types of other places to try to help and serve and bring in, tens of millions of dollars in medical aid and relief and urgent food during crisis situations. So I've done this for a very long time. And this is a little bit different fight because it's such an invisible war that we can't see. But some of the things that are going on the back end, I was just named head of the My Pillow Task Force under my friend Mike Lindell. And so what we have been doing is, one, we turned the entire company, well, 75% of the company, to focus on masks and producing masks and procuring masks. And so I've been working alongside our other task members to go and try to find urgently needed PPE for hospitals and cities and small towns all around this country. It really has been a challenge, and seeing firsthand some of the difficulties in shipping and procuring. There's so much evilness out there right now where people are trying to scam, and so when you have states and towns and cities that don't have the mask that they need, they will do almost anything to get it. And so we've been trying to act as really that sounding board. We have a unit that's also helping companies trying to get these retailers to protect their staff and telling them the importance of wearing masks and gloves and really trying to get a grip around this silent war.
How's it going for you and Mike Lindell so far in getting this done? I know it is difficult, as you mentioned. Are you finding any breakthroughs to get the PPE to the people that really need it, the frontline defenders who are the health professionals, as well as people in the general public?
Yeah, after we really figured out the first piece, which was procuring enough masks and then being able to set up our manufacturing in Chaska, Minnesota, to be able to produce, thousands of cotton masks for people. Then it was really about the logistics. And so we couldn't believe that it was so hard to fly over masks, from China and other places. And it just was very difficult. And yesterday we had a big breakthrough We were able to secure a plane to bring a large number of masks here. You were just so limited before that. I mean, even working directly with the White House and, FEMA and other large groups, you still couldn't get, that needed space on these planes because the demand is so high. And so, we really did have a lot of difficulty, which we think we've gotten through now, and we have millions of masks on their way.
Very good, very good. I want you to stay with me after the break, Jack, if you don't mind. We'll be back in just a moment to talk more to Jack Brewer about his response to the COVID-19 pandemic and what he's doing personally, but also the concerns that the president expressed yesterday about the African American community. Certainly something we've been talking about here on the program. We'll be back with more of the Kelly Wright Show right after this. Welcome back to the program. My guest is Jack Brewer, former NFL player, also head of the Brewer Group, and he's doing so much right now in this age of COVID-19, which has us socially distancing ourselves. But as I've stated on this program, never to isolate ourselves on how we can help. And Jack, you were just explaining to us how you've been helping, you along with Mike Lindell of MyPillow, getting PPE, that protective protection equipment that so many of us need. The president yesterday during the coronavirus task force drilled down on a subject matter that we've talked about here on this program, and that's the fact that African Americans would be disproportionately impacted by this coronavirus. It was alarming when we announced it last week, and yet it's even more alarming starting to realize that it's right, that we do have a problem within the Black community. What's your response to what the president said, and stating that we have to drill down on this, we have to examine it and find out why it exists?
For me, it goes back to the things that, we talk about so much. I know in my house and the groups that I'm involved in, and that's the sad reality that African Americans in America are the sickest, poorest, and most uneducated segment of the population. And so if you look at, no matter if you look at cancer rates, you look at diabetes, you look at heart issues, each one of these things, African Americans tend to be the most affected. And so percentage wise. And so that's a real issue in our country. And I think that's why it's so important that we have a president that actually sets a Black agenda, an agenda for African Americans, because we really do need to deal with some of these deep-rooted issues that have been in our communities for decades. This is nothing new. We've always been the sickest, and we've always had to deal with the effects of the various issues in our countries much harder than the other segments of the population. And I think it's time for us to have those conversations and accept and realize that, because until we are okay to talk about these issues and address them, we'll never get rid of them. And so we really do need to go into look at the healthcare of Blacks in America, our eating habits, look at some of the things that we're doing to our bodies that are breaking down our immune systems. And we need to try to address those. And I'm happy that the president took that head on and actually spoke about that in front of the nation. And hopefully we can start finding some solutions.
Well, that would be the ideal situation, that we find some solutions during and after COVID-19, because obviously there may be more coronaviruses that will rise up. And certainly as an African-American man who has hypertension, personally, I find that I have to watch my diet, I have to watch my exercise, and I inherit it. But the point is, it's something that I have to deal with and contend with. Now, doctors have spoken on this program stating that we do have to be more cognizant in our community, and we have to sound the alarm. So it was good that not only did we sound the alarm last week on the program, but we heard the president sound the alarm yesterday, as well as Dr. Anthony Fauci, about the disproportionality of this COVID-19. Is there something that you will be doing in addition to getting PPE beyond COVID and during COVID to help more Black Americans get into that space of better health?
Definitely. We do it every day. I'm an owner in a medical company, a medical center down in South Florida. where we treat seniors and we offer primary care to them. And that is our concept. You know, me and my partner, Barrett Green, took our philosophy that we learned in professional football about diet and exercise. And that's exactly what we're using in our preventative care model to help these seniors. And we also do that in the community centers that we serve. You know, I'm feeding kids every day out of the PAL Center right now, nutritional meals, fruits and vegetables, and those things down in West Palm Beach, where I sponsor the Police Athletics League Center, especially throughout this coronavirus. We have kids that aren't going to school where they normally get their nutrition every day. We need to continue to feed them. And we're also feeding their families. And every weekend for the last 2 weeks, folks have been coming, hundreds of families have been coming to pick up food and pick up fresh fruits and vegetables for the week for their families. And so we're going to continue to do that. We're also sending aid to some other places. I know we have a lot of need here in America, but you know, my kids over in Haiti and the kids, I feed 15,000 kids a day in Malawi, Africa, you know, and we're continuing to make sure that they have the nutritional resources as well. So, you know, really putting our hands out and helping as many poor and underserved Black populations as we can.
Jack, I appreciate you, man, doing all that you do. You've been given a lot of gifts, and to whom much is given, much is required. And certainly, you're stepping up, you and your family and your colleagues as well. So I appreciate you coming on the show today and weighing in on this all-important issue. We will get through this, but we have to do it through faith and hope and love and some hard work and face some hard facts about how we protect ourselves in this age of COVID-19 and beyond. I appreciate you, Jack Brewer. Thank you for being on the program.
Thank you so much, Kelly. And as you said, you know, Black people, we're a people of faith, and I think it starts with that. And the more we get back to our faith-driven principles, I think a lot of the other issues that we have around our community will continue to get better.
Couldn't say it any better. Thank you. Jack Brewer on the program today with the Kelly Wright Show, and we'll have to have you back as often as we can to keep us updated on what's happening in Malawi and Haiti as well, which of course they're dealing with COVID as well. But thank you so much, sir.
Anytime, Kelly. God bless you, brother.
God bless you too. Stay safe. Welcome back to the show. Joining me now is Dr. Linda Gable Adams. She is a psychologist, and she's working to help a lot of people who have needs. Doctor, you're working in the Newark, New Jersey area, which is an area that's been hard hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. What's happening with your patients, and what kind of patients do you treat? What are their needs?
Well, the majority of the patients that we're treating are patients with mental illness and also substance abuse. I work in a couple of different organizations to include the hospital. So the hospital is primarily for people suffering with mental illness, and we will treat someone coming in with substance abuse problems and then refer them to appropriate follow-up treatment.
How difficult is it for these types of patients in an age of COVID-19 with social distancing and under lockdown? How can they get the help that they need?
Well, right now, everybody is going towards telemedicine or telepsychiatry, whatever term you want to use, because the ideal is to still be able to provide services for the patients. And we're not really seeing a surge in patients coming into the hospital. So we're really reaching out to them. I've had some patients who I've treated in the past who are reaching out to me, who I'm seeing by telepsychiatry, because the bottom line is that they understand what's going on and they want their medications, and it's a way to keep them from spiraling out of control. So they are asking for help.
Well, that's important. If they're asking for help, that means that they want a solution because they know what's at risk if they don't get the kind of help they need. You know, mental illness is a fact of life, and it happens in our country, just as substance abuse does. And these populations should not be overlooked, nor should they be looked down upon. But certainly in this heightened sense of this coronavirus nightmare we're all experiencing, I think you and other doctors should be applauded for the work you're doing to make sure that telepsychiatry is working and keeping people from actually losing it because of not being able to get to their meds or have the kind of counseling that you provide. In the wake of COVID-19, are they expressing concerns for their families, concerns for their own safety?
Well, most of them are talking about their anxiety for themselves and, of course, for their families as well. First and foremost, they want their anxiety addressed and their stressors addressed. They understand that they cannot be there for their families if they're not being treated or on their medications. And hence, that's why I have some of my older clients coming back, looking, for me to provide them with some type of care. And while I am making sure that they get their medications, also give them some ideals to help them manage their anxiety, like eating a nutritious, immune boosting foods like broccoli or spinach or peanuts, doing yoga or meditations for a few minutes a day. I tell them at minimum at least 5 or 10 minutes. So some of them are doing that. Some of them are finding other creative things to do, like video chatting with their family or friends. So if I find that once we can kind of get them to focus on reducing their anxiety, then we can get everything else in place that needs to be done.
Doctor, thank you so much for doing the therapy that you're doing and helping people and telepsychiatry. Who would have thought or ever imagined that we'd be in this type of pandemic, and to see that telemedicine can actually work and save lives and keep people from losing their mental acumen, for lack of a better word, and their fortitude. So I know you're doing a great work, and thank you so much, especially there in the New Jersey area that's been so hard hit. We hear about New York, your neighbor, but all of that area is still being hit with the coronavirus. Anything else that you want to advise us before we go?
Well, I always encourage everyone, whether you're talking to a therapist or not talking to a therapist, know your limits and listening to the information that's being put out. If you hear something, do your research. Don't let it scare you. Do research so you understand what's being said. And if you can, if your backyard is large enough or you have a park near your home, take a 5-minute walk, but just remember your social distancing, and reach out to a therapist if you need to. And if it's okay with you, Mr. Wright, I'd like to share our phone number. They can call us as well if they require some telepsychiatry therapy to help them manage their anxiety.
Absolutely.
So if you feel that you don't know where to go, please reach out to us. Our number is 888-284-2034. And we'll be more than happy to provide you with services, with therapy, or at least get you in the right place where you can be helped.
I'm going to ask you to repeat that number one more time.
It is 888-284-2034.
Dr. Linda Gable Adam, helping a lot of people who are sometimes forgotten in our society, and this is one time they should not be forgotten. Thank you for what you do.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And I can't imagine myself doing anything else.
All right, thank you. Back with more of the Kelly Wright Show after this. Welcome back to the Kelly Wright Show. Joining me now is Dr. Frederick Gaines, and you're going to love meeting this gentleman because He is talking to me, and Dr. Gaines, I understand that you have 102 temperature right
Yeah,
now that your wife
yeah,
just took for you.
yeah.
You tested positive with COVID-19. The
Yeah,
coronavirus is going through your body, but you're
yeah,
quarantined at home, yet you're still
yeah,
teaching
yeah,
students in college.
absolutely, absolutely.
What college do you teach at, sir, and what do you instruct?
I'm the chair of ethnic studies at College of San Mateo in San Mateo, California. And so I teach a variety of ethnic studies courses from African American history and culture to, I used to teach more Asian Pacific classes, but mainly African American cinema, the history, Africa and African American history. So a variety of classes that deal with the history of African and African American people. Yeah,
Let me just say to you how inspirational it is to see that you're still going to work from your home
yeah,
and you're COVID-19 positive. I talked to a friend of mine the other day on this show who went through something similar, and he was stating that coronavirus is not a death sentence,
yeah,
and you can get through it if you pay attention to what doctors are saying and
yes,
exercise the good judgment to do that. And that's exactly what you're doing. But
yeah.
to students and even to people like myself, man, what you're doing to continue on teaching students,
Yeah.
college students, is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that, but I don't, for me, I never thought about it any other way. I'm like, if I can get up every morning and if I can address my students and talk to my students, that to me was just a no-brainer. And I felt like I needed to, oftentimes in class, I'm always thinking, how can I, beside teaching content, how can I in my own life, with my own life, demonstrate courage. Oftentimes, I'm pretty transparent in the classroom. So, I'm always conscious of how can I make what's happening in the world a lesson for my students? How can I demonstrate through my own life? Many times they're like, Dr. Gaines, we love it when you tell stories about your family and the mistakes you've made. And, in my evaluations, they say, man, we love to hear that because it helps us and it gives us hope. So for me, I've been teaching them this concept of Ubuntu, which is an African concept of interdependence and the idea that I can't be me without you, that we are joined together. And so when they heard about this, many of them were saying Ubuntu, Ubuntu. So um, I'm constantly trying to figure out ways to inspire my students. And so this is like the best opportunity. I mean, we talk about courage. I go, you know what? Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the acting in the face of fear.
Yeah.
That is courage. And so I want to demonstrate courage for my students. And I know that I get up and do my breathing, and my wife is helping me, and I'm making sure that I'm doing all the things that I need to do, taking my vitamins and deep breathing and all of that, getting up and stretching and all of that. But I also believe that to keep giving, and to remember that students are watching you. My kids are watching me. So that's important to me.
We're talking to Dr. Frederick Gaines, who is an amazing man, as you're seeing, and we're going to come back with much more of my dialogue with him because all of us need to be informed and inspired, and certainly Dr. Gaines can do that for us. We'll be back in just a moment on The Kelly Wright Show. Welcome back. So again, I'm talking to Dr. Frederick Gaines, who is the chair of ethnic studies at San Mateo College out there in beautiful California near San Francisco, right?
Right. That's right.
And you were talking about your students. Now, we hear about how the educational system has been disrupted because of coronavirus. In fact, it's disrupted every sector of our life.
Yes,
However, for college students, it's really a difficult chapter in their lives.
absolutely.
And you're dealing with a lot of young African Americans and
Yep,
Latino Americans, people of color,
that's right.
in one of the richest, wealthiest places on the planet, right there in
San
this.
Mateo. Yeah. Yes, it
So,
is.
and these are college students, man. So
Right.
economically, it's hard for them to make it out there. What are you doing to help them besides what you're teaching them in the classroom?
Well, thank you for asking. My college, I'm very proud of my college because we have, even before this, we understood the disparities, and we understood that our Black and brown students were they food insecure, they were housing insecure. I mean, in San Mateo, I'm not sure, but in a one bedroom apartment might cost you $3,000 or more. And so people are living in basements and garages. And I work with a lot of African American student athletes, and these kids are piling up 7 and 8 kids in a house, because they are there trying to live their dreams. And we have an awesome program for our student athletes, but they can't afford to live here, and they've always had these insecurities. So the thing is it's kind of like the Black community. The Black and brown community was already in a depression, and then we have this thing pulled from under us. So we have food, distribution. Some of our students actually on programs where they can get food from the college. And what I try to do is, in that spirit of Ubuntu, I get my students to talk to each other about, do you know of a food bank? Do you know of an agency that would help with rent? What can you guys do? This is the time to live out those concepts. It's no longer just, writing concepts on the board. I told them, I go, this is when we live it out. This is when we live it out. And what is education, if we don't live out and with authenticity what it is we're teaching? Then it's just a joke. It's just something we do to put letters behind our names.
To our rich history, in all the history that we've studied, obviously slavery comes to mind. If we can endure that and overcome that,
Yeah,
it's indicative that we can overcome this.
absolutely. I mean, I think, when I'm teaching about African and African American history, I'm saying to my students, guys, you've been lied to. We were the first to do
Yeah.
philosophy. We were the first to do farming. We were the first to do architecture. The Dogon tribe knew about the Sirius B star 5,000 years ago. The Dogon tribe understood 5,000 years ago that blood circulates in the human body. In Central Africa, we find the oldest calculators ever found on Earth, and they hid it away in the Belgium Museum. But 22,000 years old are these calculators that the African women were using it for their cycle, but they were also using it to track the stars. So, I tell them, guys, we've been lied to, and it's a tragic thing, and that it's so important that we start to deconstruct. And it takes a lot of time and a lot of energy. And for me, my greatest challenge is trying to engage them and saying, it's in those books. All you have to do is dig in there. It's not like I'm making this stuff up. Many times when I'm teaching about these histories, the first thing I'll do is I'll go to European scientists that confirm the things I'm about to teach them. Because I tell my students, I love you, but we're all brainwashed. We're all brainwashed. So what I need to do is have Asian and European scientists tell you this stuff before I show you the brothers that have been knowing this stuff for 100 or more years, for thousands of years. But oftentimes I'll introduce a subject by having people like Basil Davidson, the European scientist who've been studying the African people for most of his life. He passed away a few years ago, but saying to students, there's so much that can build you up. And my great grandmother, who was half white, she was a slave owner's daughter, and she lived to be 110 years old. And many times when I'm going through a hard time, people look at ants, the Africans honored our ancestors. And some people are like, oh, well, that's kind of, that's not good Christian. I go, wait a minute. Now, we're not worshiping our ancestors, but we are being inspired by what they've overcome. And so many times I would have a picture of my great grandmother when I was working in my graduate program and I was really struggling. I would bring a picture of her and put it on my desk because I said, if this woman could live through rape and abuse, and they said she lived in a house that had dirt floors, if this woman can do that, that's in me. That's a part of my legacy. So that's what we need to draw on, and I'm trying to get that inside of my students, because it's kind of like me trying to get medicine in my body and trying to get, the vitamin D and the vitamin C and all those things. Every day I'm putting that stuff in my body. In order for us to have the immunity of this racist system that destroys us, we have to have the history of Africans inside of us, a true history. And that's why we have to get it in them. I have so much work to do. So, I have to stay on this planet so I can get it done.
There's nothing greater than a man or a woman or a child that understands their God-given purpose. And sir, you certainly understand yours. It's a call that you're answering willingly, and I thank you for being on the program. Do me a favor, first get better, and then consider coming on this program weekly to educate and illustrate and illuminate the truth.
Thank you. I would love to.
All right.
God bless you, my brother. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too, man. More than you have.
God's work.
Gains. Keep doing the good work. All right.
Thank you. God bless you.
And we'll be back with more after this. Welcome back to the program. And now for my final word. You heard me discuss at the top of the show how the African American community was adversely impacted by the coronavirus. And we're still in this new normal that's quite abnormal. And the one thing that we should be learning as African Americans is that we must reach out and help each other like never before. Let's follow those good safety guidelines and health guidelines that we're hearing from the CDC and Dr. Anthony Fauci. But let's also reach out to each other to keep each other encouraged. And let's practice good social distancing, but not isolate ourselves from each other, but continue to call each other and encourage each other about how to take better care of our health. You see, the greatness of a nation, I believe, begins in the homes of its people. And if we're now being told to stay at home, then the greatness of our community, the African American community, must start at home. So let's continue to build up our homes with the knowledge and with the faith and with the hope that we can not only endure this, but after we get on the other side of this, we can continually deal with the issues that have led to our health disparities in the first place. In the meantime, I hope you can write it, ignite it, and let's be united in spreading throughout our community, not fear, but knowledge and love and freedom and peace. Peace out, everybody. Salvation. Please come and heal the nations. Lord, we need deliverance. Oh, please come and give us forgiveness. Well,